It's not paper talk, unfortunately.
Really?
I haven't spoke to him for a long time, no. Which
Shame.
is sad. It is,
Shame.
absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, same agent as Alan, same boot sponsors. We were always together on the circuit. When I mean, playing for England, playing up front alongside him was a proper honour. I mean, what a player. And then going to Newcastle, one of the reasons I thought, no, how good will this be playing for a season or two with Alan Shearer up there? I mean, that was one of the reasons I thought, no, go on, I'm going to go to Newcastle. And stayed in his house while I was house hunting, my family, big mates, and remained that. Played golf with him all the time. We loved our horses, we loved our golf, everything was fine. But sadly, as soon as he took over as manager, it took a twist, and it took a twist in the final game. I mean, I was out for
Villa.
Yeah, I was out with a groin injury for most of his short period. I think he was only manager for 8 games.
9 games, I think.
9 games, was it? And
is it fair to say Alan believed that you were fit and you faked it? Is that what we're talking about here?
Basically the crux of the matter, yeah. And I had a groin injury for a period of time, so I didn't even play many games under Alan. But then the last game was looming, and in my eyes, and bear in mind, we've already spoken about injuries.
Yeah.
I knew my body better than anybody. I don't care whether you're the best doctor or best physio in the world. I knew my body, and I knew when I was a week early or 2 days away or I'm right now or whatever. I knew it just from feel. I'd had it. I'd been there. I'd done it for years and years.
Do you want to make up one then? Because he's basically accused you, not cheating, but, he doesn't want to play.
Well, I've got no problem with Alan. Absolutely. Like the guy, as I say, got great history with him, but sadly he's got this view of myself that I didn't want to play in this last game. And I know why he'd come to the conclusion. He thinks that because I was at the end of my contract, that, it might have influenced or affected the next move. But, I mean, come on, I've had, as I say, 25, 30 muscle. Another one isn't going to, stop me from doing whatever. So I was more than... And in fact, I went into his office the day before the game and I said, if I were you, I would put me on the bench. I'm not right. I mean, I've just been trying to sprint with the physio, and if I go another step quicker, I got to about 70%. If I go another step, it's going to ping again. I'm still a week away with it. But put me on the bench. If we need a goal, 10 minutes to go, whatever, bring me on. I'll loiter around the box and I'll try to knock one in. But it's a risk starting.
Did you go on the bench?
I was on the bench, and that transpired. That exactly, those chain events happened. But he took that as some way that I didn't want to play. I mean,
there'd be a huge pressure on Alan though, wouldn't you, when he actually got the job? That was going to define whether he was going to be Newcastle manager or not.
And I get that, and sadly, it's sad for everybody.
Sad for him, yeah.
Of course, it would have been great. What a story! But I felt like the scapegoat for all of this. And as I say, why on earth wouldn't I want to play? Why on earth? I mean, I've played in all the big games in the world. Every derby there is, every cup final, the best thing about my career is that I played best on the big occasions. Look at the 15 biggest games of my life. I scored or got man of the match or whatever it was. Why on earth would I bottle it away at Aston Villa? Or it was massive. I mean, I basically ruptured my hamstring against Leeds in '99, and I was only 19 at the time. And to put it bluntly, you work on 3 hamstrings in each of your legs. One of mine in my right leg totally ruptured, so it recoiled and reattached. So part of my hamstring sort of attached behind my knee, and one was up by my backside. So we never used to do, or the medical people never used to do operations on muscles back then. They do now.
No scans. No
well,
MRIs.
We had a scan. I knew I'd ruptured it, but there was nothing you could really do about it. So you just had to strengthen the muscles that were intact. So basically, from the age of 19, right the way through my career, I was working off 3 hamstrings in my left leg and 2 working ones in my right leg, which of course creates a huge imbalance. And then the little niggles came after that. But when you're young, you can almost get through it. You're still, your muscles are still springy and fast and all the rest of it.
Compensate for it.
Exactly. But then it starts catching up with you. And as soon as I went to Newcastle, I think, around that time, when your body starts getting a bit slower and whatever, then, the wear and tear of putting strain on different parts of your body started to, because then I started getting groin injuries and hernias and things like that.
I was there.
Yeah. No one will ever convince me any differently in terms of the quality of the players. We had the best left back in the world at the time in Ashley Cole. We had, the likes of Rio and John Terry and Sol Campbell. Name a better three. Then you've got on the right, you can have a Gary Neville, a Beckham.
What happened then?
And then
Brazil
midfield.
Year, didn't you?
Yeah, and then midfield. We don't even need to start talking about that. We've got Scholes, Lampard, Gerrard. End of story. These are players that are winning the Champions League every year. My main gripe, and Glenn Hoddle for me was the best manager I played under in terms of with England. And I've always thought that England's players have been suited to a back three, a 3-5-2. We've always had brilliant centre halves.
Glenn's training wasn't mundane then.
I never played under Big Sam at England. But we had great centre halves, great centre midfielders, and we ended up playing people like Paul Scholes on the left to be insistent on a 4. Look at our success. Look at, when I was growing up, 96 under Terry Venables, 3-5-2. Glenn Hoddle, 3-5-2. Then we've gone through a stinking period for years and years. And now Gareth Southgate, last time, 3. For some reason, I just think England players have always been strong in certain areas. And I think
stuck with the back three in the World Cup, though, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And more success. All the way through, didn't he?
Look at all our poor performances is with the 4. I think England for years and years and years, 20, 30 years now, have been more, in line with the 3-5-2. It's a huge surprise in terms of what's happened, but it was never a surprise in terms of his desire to go into management. Always wanted to. When I was at Manchester United with him, everyone started. There was a big group of us doing our badges together. So, and he always used to talk about going into management after. And I think he grew into that. Bear in mind, I saw him right as a very young lad coming into the England squad, and got to know him very well from a very early stage. And he grew into being almost a captain, a leader of a dressing room, and it was always going to be the next step. And even though it was Real, it still was hard to do. As soon as I heard of their interest, I was with Jamie Carragher at the time, and we both just couldn't believe it. And I just spent, I think it was only a couple of days thinking, shall I, shan't I, what shall we do? And
were the boys driving you mad?
Well, it was only Cara that I let know, and he was saying, don't go, don't go, of course. But it was just in the back of my mind, just thinking, Ian Rush, he went, he left, he did a year in Juventus, and then he came back, and I just thought, if I say no, I'm going to think, what if, all my life. I definitely would. I'd be sat here telling you, do you know what, at some point I could have gone to Real Madrid. And I just thought, it's an experience that I have to try. That kit, that stadium, those players, Ronaldo, Zidane, Figo, Beckham, Carlos, there's so many great players at the time.
I think Shearer in the book says they may have Ronaldo, but they can't afford Michael Owen.
Well, yeah, Gerard Houllier had just left us, so probably that was why Rafa Benitez had just taken over. But it was one of those, and I remember vividly going to the airport, really upset, thinking, what have I done? Shall I, shan't I? But I'd already agreed, and I just hoped that I could one day come back. I felt as if I had to do. I did it for the experience, and enjoyed it. But I knew as soon as I'd spent a season there, I wanted to come back to the Premier League, and then, of course. But once you've moved once, it's very difficult. The president basically told me where I was going after that. A big bid came in from Newcastle. He was adamant I wasn't going back to Liverpool. So, so in hindsight, then obviously I would love to have stayed at Liverpool for all my career and had a great, fantastic. But then again, I wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had in my career. So, no qualms.